Build the System, See Your Future Grow Effortlessly. Written by Kelvin W. Nathan. Published by the Wise Book Voice. Introduction. We are taught to dream big, hustle hard, and chase the future with relentless ambition. But here's the truth most people miss: a dream without a system is just chaos wearing a nice suit. The people who build extraordinary lives, wealthy lives, meaningful lives, don't get there by working harder. They get there by working on the right things, in the right order, inside the right system. This book is about that system. We've been sold a lie. Culture glorifies the grind. It worships overnight success and glorifies those who never sleep. But the real winners aren't grinding, they're designing. While others react to life, they respond through systems they've intentionally built. Their results aren't magic, they're mechanical. It's not luck, it's structure. It's not hustle, it's alignment. If you want an abundant future, financially, creatively, spiritually, it won't come by accident. It must be engineered. You don't manifest success, you construct it. And you start by building the systems that make it inevitable. Systems aren't cold or rigid. They are containers for your energy, pathways for your purpose, and frameworks that protect you from burnout. They give your life repeatable momentum so your future doesn't rely on how you feel tomorrow morning. They create freedom, not restriction. When your systems run, your mind is free to focus on what truly matters: vision, impact, relationships, creativity, peace. This book is your blueprint, not a motivational boost or temporary fix, but a true framework to design systems that match your mission, automate your growth, and help you build a life where abundance is no longer a pursuit, it's the baseline. We'll start at the roots: how to design a system that reflects your identity and values, not someone else's blueprint. From there, we'll explore how to automate the mundane, organize your mind, build consistent habits, measure what matters, and scale your results in a way that aligns with who you want to become, not just what you want to have. The goal is not just productivity, it's clarity. It's self-trust. It's freedom from chaos. You will be challenged, not to do more, but to build better. To stop throwing energy at scattered goals and start investing in structure. Because once your system is in place, your future is no longer uncertain, it's inevitable. Some will try to skip the system. They'll chase the shortcut, the hack, the one-time breakthrough, and they'll stay stuck. This book isn't for them. It's for builders, quiet revolutionaries who know that the real power is not in a big win, but in designing a machine that wins daily. You don't need more motivation, you need a system that doesn't rely on it. You don't need more goals, you need a structure that makes results automatic. You don't need to predict the future, you need to build it. So that's where we begin: build the system. Then build your future. Chapter 1: Abundance begins with architecture. Every skyscraper begins the same way, not with steel or glass, but with a blueprint. A carefully drawn, deeply intentional plan that shapes the entire structure before a single beam is laid. Without it, the building collapses under its own ambition. The same is true of your life. If you're chasing abundance, chasing purpose, chasing a future you haven't yet lived, you must begin with architecture. Not the architecture of buildings, but the architecture of your thoughts, systems, and inner alignment. Most people build their lives backwards. They chase outcomes, money, status, influence, and then scramble to create routines or habits to hold it all together. But abundance doesn't come to those who chase outcomes. It comes to those who design ecosystems, an ecosystem where every part of your life is rooted in intentional design, where your time, energy, focus, and resources are working in harmony, not friction. Your current life is already a system, whether you know it or not. You're living inside a set of routines, beliefs, and defaults that are producing your daily experience. If you don't like your results, it's not because you're broken, it's because your system is producing exactly what it was built to produce. A chaotic schedule, inconsistent energy, unfinished goals, none of these are character flaws. They're system flaws. And system flaws can be redesigned. This chapter is about that redesign. It begins with awareness, noticing where your current architecture is leaking time, wasting energy, or working against the vision you claim to have. Then it moves into intentionality, choosing new structures to support who you're becoming, not who you've been. Abundance is not something you find, it's something you align with. That alignment begins by asking the right questions. What kind of life do I want to wake up to daily? What kind of emotional state do I want to sustain? What kind of work brings me alive? What kind of routines drain me? If your architecture doesn't answer these questions, you're not building, you're improvising. Improvisation works in jazz, but not in building a life. You can't freestyle your way to long-term success. You have to pause, zoom out, and see the whole structure. What supports your energy? What protects your focus? What rhythms allow you to grow without collapsing? You need rituals that are repeatable, frameworks that are flexible, and systems that don't fall apart when life gets messy. That's the quiet genius of a well-designed system. It holds you up when motivation fails. It gives structure to creativity. It lets you show up as your highest self without having to fight your lowest habits every morning. You don't have to win the battle of willpower if the system is built right, it carries you through the friction. In a scarcity mindset, people try to control everything manually. They hold on tight, micromanage their lives, and exhaust themselves in the process. But an abundance mindset doesn't seek control, it seeks structure. Not rigid, suffocating structure, but intentional design, a framework that frees up space for what matters. In abundance, you don't need to hustle harder, you need to architect smarter. Think of your life like a garden. The seeds you plant, your intentions, values, ideas, only flourish if the environment supports them. You can't force a harvest, but you can build a system where growth becomes natural. Sunlight, water, healthy soil, that's your time, your energy, your environment. The architecture of your life determines whether your garden thrives or withers. This is not just theory, it's deeply practical. You can start by mapping the architecture you already live in. Look at your mornings. Are they designed or chaotic? Look at how you handle money, reactively or strategically. Look at your workspace, your digital life, your calendar. Each of these is a structural component of your system. Each one can be redesigned with intention, not to be perfect, but to be aligned. The myth is that you need to overhaul everything at once. But system builders know the truth, small hinges swing big doors. One changed routine can cascade into dozens of improved results. One restructured environment can unlock creative energy you didn't know you had. One boundary can reclaim hours of your week. This is how systems work. They stack. They scale. They liberate. Start with one corner of your architecture. Clean it. Refine it. Systemize it. Maybe it's your digital clutter. Maybe it's your morning routine. Maybe it's how you manage incoming tasks. Don't aim for complexity, aim for consistency. Build a microsystem that works every day. Then another. Then another. Before long, you're not just doing better, you're becoming someone different. Someone who doesn't live in chaos. Someone who builds their future piece by piece. You are the architect of your life, whether you own that role or not. You can build on accident or on purpose. You can keep reacting to fires, or you can build a system that prevents them. The abundant life isn't found in endless striving, it's found in intentional design. The architecture you build today will shape the life you live tomorrow. So start now. Design with clarity. Build with courage. Create a system that supports the weight of your dreams. In the next chapter, we'll begin dismantling one of the greatest myths of modern life, the idea that hustle is the only path to success. You'll learn how rhythm, not grind, is the real engine of sustainable abundance. Because once the architecture is clear, the next step is to make it livable, energizing, and human. Your system starts here, and it starts with design. Chapter 2: The Myth of Hustle and the Power of Rhythm. We've been conditioned to believe that the only way to succeed is to hustle relentlessly, to wake before the sun, to outwork, outpace, and outgrind everyone else. Social media celebrates this image of the relentless doer, the person who never stops, who sacrifices sleep, relationships, and sanity in pursuit of their goals. But behind the glamorized hustle is a deeper truth: burnout, inconsistency, and, often, regret. The abundance mindset doesn't reject hard work, but it redefines its context. It doesn't worship constant motion, it values consistent rhythm. Not all effort is equal. There's a massive difference between activity and effectiveness, between movement and momentum. Rhythm is what converts energy into results without collapse. The hustle myth is seductive because it gives a quick sense of control. It tells you that if you just try harder, push more, sleep less, you'll get there faster. And maybe you will, temporarily. But hustle is a fuel that burns dirty. It creates temporary surges followed by long slumps. It relies on emotional spikes, adrenaline, and caffeine to cover for the absence of sustainable systems. Rhythm, on the other hand, is clean fuel. It respects the cycles of energy, creativity, and recovery. Rhythm asks, how do I build something that works even when I'm not at my best? Hustle never asks that question. It assumes you'll always be on, always pushing, always available. But you are not a machine. And you were never meant to be. Even machines need maintenance. Even software needs updates. You need space to rest, to reflect, to recharge, not just so you can do more, but so you can do better. Rhythm isn't lazy, it's strategic. It's the pattern of output that lets you keep creating value without sacrificing your health, your relationships, or your peace. True abundance can't exist without rhythm, because abundance is a long game. And long games are won with systems, not sprints. People resist rhythm because it feels slower at first. Hustle gives the illusion of speed, but rhythm gives you something hustle never can: sustainability. It allows you to build consistency. And consistency compounds. A person who works with rhythm and structure over a year will outperform someone who hustles in bursts, every time. Because what matters in building a future isn't how fast you can move in a week, but how reliably you can build over time. Rhythm allows for compound progress. Hustle relies on heroic effort. Look at any elite performer, an athlete, a musician, a successful entrepreneur. They don't rely on blind hustle. They train in rhythm. They rest in rhythm. They operate with a structured flow that maximizes their performance across time, not just in a moment. They have seasons of growth, seasons of refinement, and seasons of pause. There's wisdom in their cadence. It's not just about pushing, it's about pacing. So how do you begin to shift from hustle to rhythm? First, by being honest about the cost of hustle. Are you sacrificing long-term clarity for short-term intensity? Are you constantly tired, but proud of it? Are you checking off boxes without feeling a deeper sense of progress? Then, look at your calendar. Is it built around your natural energy patterns, or someone else's expectations? Start there. Begin tracking not just what you do, but how it feels. Are you working when you're sharpest? Are you resting when you're depleted? If not, your system is working against you, not for you. Rhythm starts by aligning your energy with your priorities. You don't need to work 8 hours a day to make progress. You need 2 to 3 focused hours where your brain and body are in sync, supported by systems that remove friction. That's the quiet magic of rhythm. It multiplies your effort by removing the noise around it. It simplifies. It refines. It allows for rest without guilt and action without panic. The transition from hustle to rhythm often requires unlearning. Many people are addicted to being busy because it makes them feel worthy. It gives them an identity. But being busy and being effective are not the same. An abundance mindset doesn't attach your value to your activity. It knows that your power lies in what you build, not just in what you do. And what you build lasts longer when it's constructed in rhythm. When you adopt rhythm, something remarkable happens: you become more present. Hustle scatters your mind. Rhythm anchors it. With rhythm, you begin to anticipate your energy highs and lows. You schedule deep work when your mind is fresh. You plan your breaks intentionally. You stop apologizing for rest because you understand that rest is part of the system. You begin to feel in control, not because you're doing everything, but because you're doing the right things at the right time in the right sequence. This isn't about doing less, it's about doing smarter. Rhythm doesn't mean you sit back and let life drift by. It means you design a tempo that lets your creativity thrive, your health stabilize, and your mind stay clear. It means you build boundaries around your energy and protect your focus like a sacred asset, because that's what it is. Your energy is your most valuable currency. And rhythm is the budget that keeps you from going bankrupt. As you build your system, embed rhythm into its core. Don't just plan what you'll do, plan when you'll do it and how you'll recover afterward. Create a cadence you can sustain. Think in cycles. Design your week to include momentum and maintenance, action and reflection. Make rhythm part of your identity, not just your schedule. Because in the end, hustle might get you noticed, but rhythm will get you free. And freedom is what abundance really means. Freedom to choose. To create. To enjoy the process without burning out in the pursuit. Rhythm is how you protect that freedom. It's how you ensure that what you build doesn't collapse under its own weight. In the next chapter, we'll begin the blueprint process by exploring clarity, because you can't build a system for a future you haven't clearly defined. We'll get precise about what you want, why it matters, and how to reverse engineer a structure that brings that vision to life. Before you build the machine, you must define the mission. And that mission starts by getting clear. Chapter 3. Define it so you can build it. You can't build a future you haven't defined. That's the truth most people avoid, because definition requires clarity, and clarity requires slowing down. It requires choosing what matters over what's popular, what's personal over what's prescribed. Too many people chase goals that aren't theirs, career paths chosen for status, lifestyles copied from screens, dreams borrowed from someone louder. But building a system that actually works, a system that supports your vision of abundance, begins by getting radically clear about what you want and why it matters. This is not about setting arbitrary goals. It's about defining the life you're actually trying to live. Clarity is the first act of power. Without it, even the best systems collapse under confusion. You can create perfect schedules, install clever tools, and read every productivity book on the planet, but if your destination is vague, your progress will always feel hollow. You'll work hard and feel unsatisfied. You'll check boxes but remain directionless. It's not because you're lazy or broken, it's because the foundation is undefined. Systems don't run on noise. They run on purpose. Purpose, however, is often misunderstood. People think it's a grand revelation, a single moment of divine insight. In reality, purpose is the result of attention. It comes from paying close attention to what energizes you, to what you return to even after failure, to what you think about when no one is telling you what to do. Purpose doesn't shout, it whispers. And to hear it, you must be willing to listen. This is where real system building begins, not with apps, not with planners, but with a brutally honest conversation with yourself. What kind of life do I want to live, in specific terms? What does abundance mean to me? Is it creative freedom? Is it time with my family? Is it the ability to work without financial anxiety? Until you define it, you can't measure progress. You can't optimize your days. You can't build a system for a life you haven't imagined. With clarity, definition isn't about locking yourself into a rigid identity. It's about giving your life structure so your energy can flow in a meaningful direction. Clarity doesn't limit you, it liberates you. It gives you the freedom to say no to distractions because you finally have a standard to measure opportunities against. Without clarity, everything feels urgent. With clarity, you can prioritize with confidence. You can say no to what doesn't align, not out of fear, but from strength. The practical step here is to articulate your vision, not in vague motivational terms, but in real language that describes your desired life in texture and tone. What does a great day look like for you? What kind of work are you doing? What kind of people are you surrounded by? What's your energy like? Where do you live? What problems are you solving? This isn't fantasy, it's design work. And if you're not willing to do this part, every system you try to build will feel hollow, misaligned, or forced. Too many people resist clarity because it requires commitment. If you define what you want, you also expose the gap between where you are and where you wish to be. That gap can feel uncomfortable, but discomfort is part of building. It's the tension that stretches you into new capacity. Embrace it. Let clarity show you the work that matters. Let it illuminate what no longer deserves your attention. It's the real function of vision, to direct your energy toward what's meaningful and away from what's simply available. Once your definition is clear, everything changes. Decision-making becomes faster. Distractions lose their grip. Your schedule begins to take shape around what matters most. You stop chasing 10 things and begin building one thing well. The people who make the deepest impact in the world aren't the ones who try to do everything. They're the ones who define their mission with such clarity that they can organize their lives around it. Their systems follow their vision, not the other way around. So define your vision. Then anchor it in your daily structure. That might mean adjusting how you begin your mornings, how you schedule your week, or how you track your progress. It might mean letting go of obligations that don't serve your future. It might mean redesigning your work environment to support focus or carving out non-negotiable time for rest. The specifics will vary, but the principle is universal: definition creates alignment. And alignment allows systems to function with less resistance. This is how people move from scattered ambition to focused momentum. They stop trying to manage everything and start managing what matters. They don't eliminate effort, they channel it. That's what a clear definition of success provides. It's a compass. And in a world of endless options, the compass is more valuable than the map. You don't need to define your entire life in one sitting. Start with the next chapter of life you want to create. Be specific. Define the outcomes, but also define the experience. Don't just say you want to make more money, say you want to make more money doing work that excites you and leaves you energized. Don't just say you want freedom, say you want a schedule that allows for creative flow, deep rest, and time with people you love. The more texture you give your vision, the easier it becomes to reverse engineer a system to support it. And yes, your definition will evolve. That's natural. But the clearer you are now, the better your system will serve you in the present. Don't wait for perfect clarity. Start with honest clarity. Build from where you are. Let your system grow with you. In the next chapter, we'll shift from defining the destination to transforming the driver, you. Because identity is the first system you live inside. Before you change your habits, workflows, or schedules, you must examine the internal story driving all of it. A system built on a fractured identity will always short-circuit. So before we automate anything, we go inward. That's where the real work begins. Chapter 4: Identity is the first system. Every action you take, every habit you repeat, every goal you pursue is a reflection of one thing: your identity. The story you believe about yourself becomes the foundation of the systems you build, the behaviors you adopt, and the future you expect. If your internal narrative is fragmented, self-sabotaging, or borrowed from someone else's expectations, then even the most well-designed external system will fail to produce sustainable growth. Identity is not just personal philosophy, it is the operating system that determines what kind of future you are able to sustain. We often try to build our lives by focusing on external results. We chase new routines, new tools, new strategies, hoping they'll finally create the breakthrough. But the truth is that no system can consistently outperform the identity it's built upon. If deep down you believe you're disorganized, unworthy, incapable, or doomed to fail, then those beliefs will sabotage every structure you try to install. You'll skip steps, abandon consistency, or subconsciously sabotage your progress, because the system is incompatible with who you think you are. The real shift comes when you stop trying to change your outcomes and start changing the story you tell yourself. That story is your identity, and it's not fixed. It's not fate. It's programmable. Every experience, every challenge, every choice has contributed to your current self-perception. But just as it was shaped, it can be reshaped. Identity is not a label you were born with, it's a construct you maintain, and therefore, it's a construct you can change. To build a system that leads to the future you want, you must first become the kind of person who can live inside that future. That doesn't mean pretending to be someone you're not. It means intentionally shifting the story about who you are and what you are capable of, then reinforcing that story through aligned action. Identity doesn't change through hope. It changes through evidence. The more you act in alignment with the version of yourself you are becoming, the more that version becomes real. This is not fake it till you make it, this is behave it until you believe it. You don't need to trick yourself, you need to give yourself proof. Every time you show up with discipline, every time you speak from truth, every time you honor a commitment, you reinforce the identity of someone who builds systems that work. The more often you align your actions with the future you want to build, the more naturally those actions become your default. Over time, the new identity stabilizes, and with it, the system that supports your future becomes easier to maintain. That's why internal alignment is more powerful than willpower. If you're constantly fighting against yourself, pushing through resistance created by a misaligned identity, you'll burn out. But when your self-concept matches your goals, friction drops. Consistency becomes natural. The system supports itself because it's operating in harmony with your belief about who you are. Changing identity doesn't require a dramatic reinvention. It requires intentional, consistent upgrades. Begin by noticing the limiting stories you've accepted. Maybe you think you're someone who can't follow through. Who's always behind. Who's not the type to be successful. These beliefs often show up subtly, in self-deprecating humor, in procrastination, in avoidance of new opportunities. But they are not fact. They are narratives. And every narrative can be rewritten. To rewrite identity, start with clarity. Define the version of you who would thrive inside the life you're trying to build. How does that person think, speak, decide, and behave? What kind of routines support that identity? What kind of people does that version of you surround themselves with? Once you have that picture, start aligning your daily behaviors with it, not perfectly, but consistently. Every aligned action is a brick in the foundation of your new system. This process is not instant. It takes repetition and grace. You will slip into old patterns. That's part of growth. The goal isn't perfection, it's reinforcement. The more consistently you act as the version of yourself who builds and sustains a better system, the more your brain begins to accept that identity as normal. And when identity shifts, systems become easier to build and sustain. You no longer have to force habits, you live them. This internal work matters more than any productivity tactic, because the person you believe yourself to be determines what you permit yourself to do. If you believe you're someone who always quits, you won't trust yourself to commit to anything that requires endurance. If you believe you're scattered, you'll stop trying to organize your time. If you believe you're unlucky, you'll dismiss every opportunity as temporary or undeserved. These are not just thoughts, they're permissions or restrictions. That's why so many people sabotage their own systems. It's not that they're undisciplined, it's that the system conflicts with their internal permissions. They haven't updated the identity to match the process. And when identity and process clash, identity always wins. Your subconscious will find ways to pull you back into the version of yourself that feels safe and familiar, even if it's dysfunctional. So the work is to make the better version feel familiar. The work is to normalize growth, to make excellence expected, to raise your internal baseline. That means speaking to yourself differently. Catching the moments when you diminish your own potential, in casual conversation or private thoughts. Defending your future from the voice of your past. Replacing the identity of survival with one of creation, one of strength, one of vision. And it means living in a way that gives that identity daily reinforcement. Eventually, this becomes natural. You no longer need to consciously remind yourself who you're becoming, because your actions have made it undeniable. You look around and see the evidence. A calendar that reflects your priorities. Work that aligns with your strengths. Relationships that uplift rather than drain. Energy that flows rather than spikes and crashes. That's when you know the system is taking root, not because it's perfect, but because it feels like a natural extension of who you are. This is the work beneath the work, the hidden engine behind every sustainable system. You can't fake it. You can't skip it. But if you commit to it, every other part of your system becomes easier to install. Identity sets the tone. It shapes your behavior, your habits, your boundaries, your goals, and your response to setbacks. When your identity supports your system, you stop pushing uphill. You begin to move with purpose, in rhythm, aligned from the inside out. In the next chapter, we'll move from identity to execution, where theory meets practice. You'll learn why systems, not motivation, are the key to consistent progress and how to build a daily process that runs with or without inspiration. Because once the identity is aligned, the next step is building a machine that doesn't need to be rebooted every morning. Chapter 5: Systems Eat Motivation for Breakfast. Motivation is overrated. That may sound strange in a world obsessed with motivation quotes, hype videos, and high-energy morning routines. But the truth is simple: motivation is inconsistent. It fades. It fluctuates. It shows up late and leaves early. If your life or business depends on whether or not you feel like doing the work, you're in trouble. The people who build lasting results, the kind that compound over time and lead to true freedom, do not rely on motivation. They rely on systems. Because systems don't ask how you feel. They just work. The biggest trap most people fall into is waiting for the right feeling before taking the right action. They think they need to be inspired, fully energized, and emotionally aligned before they do the work that matters. But high performers understand that feelings follow actions, not the other way around. They understand that when the right system is in place, action becomes automatic. It becomes a default, not a decision. And that shift, from decision to default, is where consistency is born. Every day you wake up and debate with yourself about what to do next is a day you lose energy to decision fatigue. It's a day you spend negotiating with your lower self, postponing progress, or overanalyzing what should already be structured. Systems eliminate that negotiation. They turn important behaviors into routines, routines into rhythms, and rhythms into results. They are the quiet force behind every extraordinary outcome. And yet, most people ignore them, because they're not sexy. Systems don't make headlines. They don't deliver dopamine like big wins or motivational breakthroughs. But they are what actually build the life you want. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't wait until you're inspired to do it. You do it because it's embedded into your system of hygiene. It's a non-negotiable. Now imagine if your fitness, your creative output, your learning, or your financial habits were treated the same way: automatic, consistent, built into your day without debate. That's what systems make possible. They remove the emotional resistance and replace it with clarity and flow. The key to building systems that outlast motivation is simplicity. The more complicated a process is, the more friction it creates, and friction is the enemy of consistency. A good system is easy to start, easy to repeat, and hard to forget. It should be so natural to your environment and routine that skipping it feels uncomfortable. It should reduce the number of choices you have to make, not increase them. That's what makes it sustainable. Start by identifying the tasks you want to do consistently. Then ask yourself, how can I make this so simple, so obvious, that doing it becomes easier than not doing it? If you want to write every day, don't set a goal of writing a chapter, set a goal of opening your document and writing a paragraph. If you want to work out, don't commit to 90 minutes, commit to showing up and doing 5 minutes. Most days, you'll do more, but the power of the system is that it gets you started. And once you start, momentum does the rest. That's the real difference between amateurs and professionals. Amateurs wait for motivation. Professionals rely on systems. The writer who publishes consistently doesn't always feel inspired, they just sit down and write anyway. The entrepreneur who ships product after product isn't always confident, they just follow their process. The athlete who trains through fatigue doesn't love it every day, but the system is already in place. It carries them through the low-energy moments. It creates results while others are still trying to get in the mood. Another truth about motivation is that it can't be trusted. It's shaped by mood, sleep, food, conversations, weather, and 1,000 other unpredictable factors. Basing your goals on motivation is like building a house on sand. Systems, on the other hand, are solid ground. They are stable, dependable, and measurable. They let you track your progress and make adjustments based on data, not just feelings. When something isn't working, you don't blame yourself, you diagnose the system. That's the power of having one. The most successful people aren't the most passionate or the most talented. They are the ones who remove friction from their process. They are the ones who create environments where the right actions happen naturally. They know that structure creates freedom. By automating the basics, they create space for higher-level thinking, deeper creativity, and better decision-making. They build systems that protect their energy for what truly matters. Designing a system isn't about micromanaging your life. It's about creating flow. It's about knowing what happens after the alarm goes off, where your energy should go in the first 2 hours of your day, how you handle distractions, how you reset after setbacks, what triggers your best work. It's about defining those things with intention, testing them, and then letting the system run so you don't have to constantly reinvent your day. One of the greatest advantages of having a reliable system is that it helps you stay on track even when life gets unpredictable. Because there will be days when you're tired, when circumstances shift, when plans fall apart. A system provides a safety net. It keeps your baseline performance higher than most people's best efforts. It's the difference between falling completely off track and simply adjusting the rhythm. This doesn't mean your system has to be rigid. In fact, the best systems are flexible. They adapt to seasons of life, energy levels, and evolving goals. But the structure stays. The process remains. The rhythm adjusts without breaking. That's the balance you're aiming for: discipline without burnout, flow without chaos, automation without detachment. A system that runs in the background, quietly delivering results. If you've struggled with inconsistency, don't look at your willpower, look at your structure. If you keep starting and stopping, it's not because you lack discipline, it's because you haven't made success easy enough to repeat. You haven't built a system that serves you. But you can. You can design your days, your workflow, your environment to support the person you're becoming. You can replace fragile motivation with strong systems. Once that happens, you'll no longer dread doing the work. You'll no longer burn out trying to force results. You'll start showing up from a place of clarity and intention, knowing that your process is taking you somewhere meaningful, even if today doesn't feel perfect. And ironically, That's when motivation shows up more often, not because you need it, but because your system makes space for it. It becomes a bonus, not a requirement. In the next chapter, we'll go deeper into one of the most overlooked systems in modern life, your time. You'll learn how to stop managing time like a resource and start designing it like a structure. Because time is not something you spend, it's something you shape. And your future depends on how well you shape it. Chapter 6, Time is a System, Not a Resource. We've all heard the phrase, time is money. But that comparison undersells its value. Money can be earned, saved, and replaced. Time cannot. Once it's gone forever. And yet, most people treat time carelessly, reacting to it rather than designing it. The deeper truth is this: time isn't just a resource, it's a system. And until you treat it like one, until you learn to shape, structure, and defend it, your future will remain vulnerable to distraction, interruption, and exhaustion. Most people don't lose time all at once. They lose it in fragments, 10 minutes scrolling here, 15 minutes reacting to a message there, entire afternoons pulled into someone else's emergency. The day slips away in small, unnoticeable losses that compound over time. What begins as harmless distraction slowly becomes a lifestyle of disorganization and regret. And it's not because they lack discipline, it's because they've never been taught to architect time like the system it is. A well-designed time system doesn't start with a to-do list. It starts with intention. What are you building? What kind of life do you want this day, this week, this season to support? Time design begins when you stop asking, "What do I have to do today?" and start asking, "What matters most today?" From there, you can reverse engineer the hours you have into meaningful containers of focused energy. Every block of time becomes a tool, not just a placeholder. And your day begins to serve your purpose rather than your inbox. Most people think of their calendar as a place to store appointments. But high performers see it differently. They use their calendar as a design canvas. Every color block and label is a reflection of their priorities. They don't fill time for the sake of looking busy, they shape it so that the most valuable work happens when their energy is highest. They carve out protected space for deep work, strategic thinking, and recovery. And when interruptions arise, they're handled by system, not panic. The shift from time management to time design requires awareness. It means noticing when your time is being stolen by things that don't align with your goals. It means recognizing that not all hours are created equal. An hour of distracted multitasking is not the same as an hour of deep, uninterrupted focus. One produces motion, the other produces momentum. Time design means honoring those distinctions and building a daily rhythm that reflects them. It also means building buffer zones into your day. One of the most common mistakes people make is scheduling themselves too tightly. They try to optimize every minute and leave no room for the unexpected. But life doesn't work like that. A good time system includes margin. It leaves space for transition, reflection, and recovery. It doesn't punish you for being human, it supports you through inevitable fluctuations in energy and focus. Another overlooked element of time as a system is energy mapping. You don't have the same level of focus at all hours of the day. Your brain has natural peaks and dips. If you design your schedule without accounting for this, you end up doing your hardest work when you're mentally drained and wasting your sharpest hours on shallow tasks. The most effective systems assign high-value work to high-energy windows. They align the task to the time, not the other way around. You don't need to become a robot. You just need to stop trusting your future to randomness. A scattered, unstructured approach to time guarantees missed potential. But a systemized approach, one that respects your energy and your values, produces exponential returns. Not because you're doing more, but because you're doing the right things at the right time, consistently. Building a time system isn't about micromanaging every hour. It's about defining the recurring structure that makes your best work possible. It might be as simple as creating a daily anchor, an hour in the morning where your phone is off and your most important project gets attention before anything else. Or a weekly review ritual where you reset your calendar, reflect on what's working, and refine your priorities. These aren't tasks, they are time rituals, small, consistent actions that protect your attention and move your life forward. The hardest part of designing time is learning to say no. You cannot build anything great if your time is constantly being hijacked by things that don't matter. Every yes is a no to something else. And if you haven't defined what you're saying yes to, your mission, your vision, your priorities, then your calendar will become a reflection of other people's agendas, not your own. You must become fiercely protective of your time, not to isolate yourself, but to preserve the space where your future is being built. One powerful technique is time blocking, not just for meetings, but for everything that matters. Creative work, strategic thinking, skill development, even rest. By assigning specific time slots to high-priority activities, you remove ambiguity. Create boundaries around your energy. Stop drifting from task to task. Start moving with intentional rhythm. It's not about rigidity, it's about clarity. When you see your day in blocks, you're more likely to stay on track and less likely to waste the in-between moments. But even the best time systems will fail without review. Your relationship with time is dynamic. Your energy levels will shift. Your responsibilities will evolve. That's why regular reflection is part of any good time system. Weekly or monthly, step back and ask: is my time being spent in alignment with my values? Are my highest priorities getting the focus they deserve? What needs to be adjusted to better support my goals? This simple habit of review ensures your system stays alive, responsive, and supportive. The truth is, time is not something you find, it's something you shape. And the way you shape it determines the trajectory of your life. If you're constantly reacting, constantly putting out fires, constantly racing the clock, it's not because you're too busy, it's because your time system is broken or non-existent. But you can fix it. You can create a structure where the right things happen more often than not. Your focus isn't pulled in a dozen directions. Your life actually feels like it's moving forward instead of just spinning in place. Time is not a passive container you fill, it's an active system you design. And like any system, it either supports your vision or it sabotages it. The choice is yours. In the next chapter, we'll look deeper into the input side of your system, what you allow into your mind, your space, and your attention. Because output doesn't just come from effort, it comes from managing the quality of your inputs. And if you don't control them, they will control you. Chapter 7: The Input Equation. What you produce in life, your thoughts, your energy, your work, your results, is shaped not only by your effort but by what you allow in. Inputs determine outputs. What you consume shapes what you create. The people you interact with, the content you absorb, the environments you operate in, the conversations you entertain, these all act as invisible forces directing your mind and emotions. Most people give little thought to the input equation. They believe if they just try harder, push more, or organize better, they'll get better results. But effort alone can't compensate for low-quality inputs. If you're feeding your system chaos, distraction, or negativity, your outcomes will always reflect that. In an abundance-based system, inputs are not background noise, they are design features. They are chosen, filtered, and managed with care. The people who create consistently excellent results aren't just more focused, they're more selective. They are intentional about what gets access to their mind. They understand that attention is not just a limited resource, it's a sacred one. And allowing random or toxic inputs into that space is a violation of the system they've built to protect their clarity and momentum. We live in a world engineered to hijack our attention. Algorithms are trained to exploit emotion. Media is designed to provoke outrage. Social feeds are endless loops of comparison and noise. If you consume all of it without discipline, you're not just wasting time, you're warping your perspective. You're feeding your brain a steady diet of fear, urgency, and judgment. Over time, this input rewires how you think, how you feel, and what you believe is possible. And if you're not careful, you'll start making decisions based on noise instead of vision. The first step in mastering the input equation is awareness. Begin to notice how you feel after consuming something. After spending time with certain people, do you feel drained or inspired? After scrolling through news or social media, are you more focused or more scattered? After binging information, do you take more action or less? Not all input is bad, but unfiltered input is dangerous. You must become the gatekeeper of your system, not to block the world out, but to filter it through intention. A high-performance system doesn't avoid input, it curates it. It selects books, conversations, mentors, environments, and routines that elevate thought, expand creativity, support the long game. It understands that ideas need space to grow, and that space is easily crowded by the constant influx of unimportant noise. That's why periods of silence, solitude, or digital fasting are not signs of disconnection, they're systems of protection. They allow your mind to reset, to hear itself think, to process without interruption. This isn't about perfection. You will never eliminate all low-quality input. But you can minimize its presence, neutralize its influence, build buffers, blocks of protected time without screens. Create noise-canceling habits, reading instead of scrolling, long walks without headphones, journaling before checking email. These small shifts create large returns in focus, clarity, and creativity. They reduce the cognitive junk that slows your system down. Inputs aren't just digital, they include the people you surround yourself with. Human energy is contagious. Spend enough time around pessimistic, reactive, or distracted people, and you will find yourself absorbing their frequency, mimicking their language, echoing their limitations. If you're serious about building a system that supports growth, you must audit your relationships. That doesn't mean cutting people off impulsively, it means recognizing the influence each relationship has on your state of mind and adjusting your exposure accordingly. Who you let close is part of your input equation. The same goes for physical environment. Your surroundings communicate constantly with your subconscious. A cluttered space whispers confusion. A noisy room breeds distraction. A chaotic desk leads to fragmented thinking. Your environment should reflect the system you're building. Design it with care. Make it clean. Make it focused. Make it aligned. Remove the friction that slows you down. Digital clutter, unnecessary notifications, disorganized files, every part of your physical and digital space should signal intention. Not perfection, just purpose. Once you become aware of the input equation, you begin to realize that your best ideas, your clearest thoughts, your deepest work don't happen by accident. They happen when the mind has space and structure. That structure is maintained by controlling what gets in. If your system is constantly overwhelmed by input, it won't have the capacity for output. Your energy will be spent processing noise instead of creating results. There is a myth that more information equals more intelligence. But in a distracted world, the truly intelligent are not those who know everything, they are those who know what to ignore. Discernment is the real superpower. Being able to say, "This doesn't deserve my attention right now," is an act of strength. It's how you keep your system clear. It's how you stay connected to your mission instead of being dragged into every conversation, trend, or crisis. Some of the most successful creators, leaders, and builders have strict input disciplines. They read selectively. They consume less news. They minimize screen time. They create before they consume. They understand that the best work comes from a clear signal, not a crowded frequency. They know that just because information is available doesn't mean it's valuable. They filter everything through the lens of, "Does this help me build?" If the answer is no, it's set aside. As you refine your system, build intentional input rituals. Create a morning routine that nourishes your mind before the world demands your attention. Choose a few high-quality sources of inspiration or knowledge, and ignore the rest. Surround yourself with voices that elevate your standards. Make room for boredom, it often leads to breakthroughs. Protect the time you need to think deeply without interruption. Guard your mind like it's the engine of your future, because it is. When your inputs are intentional, your energy becomes more consistent. Your thoughts become clearer. Your emotional stability increases. You no longer feel pulled in a dozen directions. You start experiencing the quiet confidence of alignment. Your system begins to function not just with more output, but with better quality output. You're no longer reacting, you're responding from clarity. In the next chapter, we'll turn our focus to repeatability, specifically, how to build systems that generate value daily without needing constant reinvention. Because once your inputs are clean, the next step is building processes that work over and over again, consistently, efficiently, and with compounding effect. Chapter 8, Build Once, Benefit Daily. There is a quiet power in systems that require one act of creation and then serve you again and again. It is one of the most overlooked principles in modern life: build once, benefit daily. Most people are stuck in a cycle of repetition without intention. They wake up, respond to the same problems, rebuild the same routines, and relearn the same lessons. Their days are filled with effort, but their systems produce nothing that outlives the moment. Meanwhile, the people who compound results over time aren't necessarily working harder, they're building smarter. They are setting up processes, automations, habits, and workflows that create results long after the initial effort has been applied. This is the logic of leverage. You take an hour today to set up a process that saves you 10 hours this month. You spend energy once designing a habit that removes decision-making from your morning routine. You build a checklist that prevents repeated mistakes. You create a template for emails you send weekly. You document a process you can hand off instead of repeating endlessly. These are not exciting, flashy tasks. They are not Instagrammable. But they are the bedrock of a systemized, scalable life. To live in abundance, you must learn to shift from reacting to designing. Most people spend their entire lives reacting, fixing what breaks, solving what's urgent, repeating what they forgot to systemize. They are locked in daily maintenance mode. But the builder's mindset looks at every repeated problem and asks, how can I build something once so this never becomes a problem again? It's a different posture toward life. It sees inefficiency not as a nuisance, but as a signal, a sign that something needs to be built better. This principle applies to every area of life. In health, it might look like creating a weekly meal plan and grocery list that removes the need for daily decisions. In finances, it could be automating transfers, bill payments, and savings so that wealth grows quietly in the background. In work, it might be creating standard operating procedures so tasks can be delegated or done faster. In relationships, it can be as simple as scheduling recurring check-ins or date nights to ensure connection doesn't fall through the cracks. The opportunities for building once and benefiting daily are everywhere, but only if you're paying attention. This approach also builds momentum. When systems run in the background, your mental bandwidth is freed up for high-leverage thinking and deep creative work. You're no longer spending energy remembering what to do, when to do it, or how to do it. You've designed your environment and your routine so that good choices happen by default. That's when life begins to feel spacious, not because you're doing less, but because you're doing the right things in the right way. It's important to understand that not every system has to be digital or complex. The simplest systems are often the most powerful. A checklist for your morning routine is a system. A one-sentence rule for evaluating opportunities is a system. A nightly ritual that resets your focus is a system. These systems don't need to be elaborate, they need to be effective. They need to reduce friction, protect energy, create consistency, The trap many people fall into is chasing novelty over stability. They want to try every new tool, every new technique, always searching for the next big breakthrough. But abundance doesn't come from chasing novelty. It comes from mastering the fundamentals, from building simple systems that deliver value over and over again. You don't need 20 productivity hacks, you need 3 systems that work every day. That's how real freedom is created, not by doing more, but by doing the same things more effectively and letting the results accumulate. The first step is observation. Track what you do repeatedly. Where are your patterns of effort? What decisions are you making over and over? What tasks eat your time every week? Every one of those is a candidate for a system. Create templates. Automate reminders. Batch similar tasks. Set up recurring calendar events. Build infrastructure around your energy. The more you systemize, the less you waste. Building once to benefit daily also demands patience. Most people resist systems because they take time to create. It's faster to do something manually, they say. And yes, today it might be. But if you're going to do it more than twice, the system will always pay off. This is the long game. You are planting seeds, and once the systems are running, they return value without requiring the same level of input. That's the leverage that transforms a life. You begin to earn back your own time. This is also how you scale impact. You can't grow your influence, your business, your creativity, or your personal fulfillment without systems that multiply your effort. Without them, every new opportunity adds pressure. With them, opportunities are processed through an engine that turns ideas into action without additional stress. It also reduces emotional volatility. When your results don't depend on how you feel each day, you experience more stability. You stop living in feast or famine cycles of productivity. Your system shows up even when you don't feel like it. And the more you experience that consistency, the more confidence you build. You begin to trust yourself, not because you're motivated every day, but because your system is stronger than your mood swings. And when the system stops working, you don't panic, you diagnose. You improve. That's the difference between a system and a streak. A streak is fragile, one bad day and it's over. A system is resilient, it adapts, evolves, and resets. It doesn't require perfection, it requires commitment. And that commitment to structure is what makes your future sustainable. At the heart of this approach is the understanding that your life is not meant to be rebuilt from scratch every morning. The decisions you make, the tools you use, the habits you install, these should serve you long after you've created them. They should build scaffolding for your growth, freeing your mind to focus on bigger questions. That's what it means to build once and benefit daily. You create something useful, and then you let it serve your future over and over again. In the next chapter, we'll turn our attention to the true nature of wealth, not just financial, but emotional, relational, and energetic. You'll see why abundance is not about accumulation but alignment, and how your systems can begin to create prosperity in every area of life without requiring you to chase it. Because when your systems are right, wealth stops being a goal and starts becoming a byproduct. Chapter 9: Wealth is a byproduct of alignment. Wealth is often misunderstood. Most people define it in purely financial terms, measuring it by bank accounts, assets, or income. But wealth, in its true form, is multidimensional. It includes time, energy, relationships, peace of mind, and freedom of choice. The abundance mindset recognizes that wealth is not merely about what you accumulate, but about how well your life aligns with your values, your purpose, and your natural strengths. Real wealth is not created by chasing money. It is created by building a system that reflects your truth and allows prosperity to grow as a natural result of alignment. The mistake many make is believing that wealth must be pursued through sacrifice. They imagine a path where joy must be traded for productivity, rest for progress, health for income. But this kind of wealth is hollow. It comes at the cost of the very things that give life meaning. True abundance is different. It grows from a place where effort and identity are not in conflict. It emerges when your daily work supports your future without draining your present. That's what alignment looks like. It's the state where what you do, how you do it, and why you do it all point in the same direction. Alignment is not accidental. It must be designed. It begins by understanding who you are at your core, your values, your temperament, your vision, and designing systems that protect and express that identity. If your systems are built around external validation, social pressure, or outdated goals, they will produce stress and misalignment. You might achieve success by the world's standards, but you will feel empty, because the structure you built doesn't serve your inner life. Wealth becomes a burden instead of a blessing. To build aligned systems, you must give yourself permission to define success on your own terms, not what you were taught, not what others expect, but what genuinely matters to you. That might mean earning less in exchange for more freedom, simplifying your lifestyle to gain more time, choosing impact over scale, depth over speed. When your systems reflect your own metrics for a rich life, wealth begins to flow with less resistance. You stop chasing and start receiving. You stop proving and start building. Wealth created through alignment feels different. It doesn't come with constant anxiety. It doesn't rely on force or manipulation. It comes through integrity. Your energy is clean. Your work is meaningful. Your relationships are not transactions, they are collaborations. You begin to notice opportunities that fit rather than forcing yourself into places where you don't belong. This is one of the clearest signals of alignment. Things feel lighter, not because they are easy, but because they are right. This doesn't mean you won't work hard, but the hard work will feel different. It will feel like an investment, not a sacrifice. It will build you rather than break you. That's what aligned effort does. It strengthens your system instead of draining it. And over time, that kind of effort compounds. It produces results that are sustainable, joyful, and rooted in something deeper than ambition. The financial side of wealth begins to shift too. When you operate from alignment, you naturally create value. You do work that matters. You build trust. You solve real problems with authenticity. And in a world starving for real connection and clarity, that kind of presence becomes magnetic. You stop chasing clients, jobs, or promotions, they begin to find you. Not because of flashy marketing or perfect credentials, but because your system radiates coherence. You become someone who can be trusted, someone whose output is consistent, someone whose presence carries weight. Money begins to show up, not as a goal, but as a result. That's what it means when we say wealth is a byproduct of alignment. It's not that you ignore money, it's that you no longer place it at the center. You place value creation at the center. You place service at the center. You place integrity in systems at the center, and those foundations attract prosperity without constant strain. You build once, and it starts to give back to you over and over. This is true across every dimension of life. In relationships, alignment leads to emotional wealth, trust, intimacy, support, mutual growth. In health, it leads to energetic wealth, sustained vitality, resilience, a body that supports your mission. In time, it leads to freedom wealth, flexibility, space, choice. In purpose, it leads to spiritual wealth, clarity, fulfillment, peace. These forms of wealth cannot be bought, but they can be built. And they are all outcomes of systems that reflect who you really are. But alignment requires courage. It asks you to stop pretending. Stop saying yes to what you hate. Stop trying to win at games you don't care about. It requires that you listen to your dissatisfaction, not silence it. That you use your frustration as fuel to build something better. The longer you ignore misalignment, the more your system becomes self-sabotaging. You'll start to resent the very results you've worked for. That's the cost of building a system for the wrong life. To return to alignment, you must first pause. Step back. Audit your systems. Ask yourself the hard questions. Am I spending time on what actually matters to me, or just what's urgent? Am I building routines that reflect my values, or someone else's expectations? Is my work feeding my soul, or just my schedule? Am I saying yes because it's aligned, or because I'm afraid to say no? These questions are not easy, but they are necessary. Because alignment doesn't come through luck, it comes through design. When you begin to realign, even in small ways, the energy shift is immediate. You breathe easier. Your creativity returns. You begin to feel proud of the life you're building, not because it's flashy, but because it's yours. Every system starts working better because it's now serving a vision that's true. That's when wealth begins to take root, not as a destination, but as the natural result of living and building in integrity. In the next chapter, we'll look at your environment, not just the spaces you occupy, but how those spaces influence your energy, focus, and identity. Because even the best internal systems can be disrupted by external chaos. And the most powerful builders know that their surroundings are never neutral, they're either lifting you up or slowing you down. And it's time to design a space that works as hard as you do. Chapter 10, Your environment is part of the system. No matter how disciplined, motivated, or clear-minded you are, your environment will either reinforce or undermine everything you're trying to build. The surroundings you operate in, the spaces you live in, the people you regularly interact with, the sounds, the colors, the digital tools and clutter, all of it is sending subtle messages to your mind every single moment. The environment is never neutral. It's either supporting your system or sabotaging it. It's either pulling you into alignment or pulling you into distraction. This is why the most intentional people design their environment with the same level of care they use to design their calendar or their goals. Most people underestimate the influence of their surroundings because the effects are rarely loud or immediate. But over time, the environment shapes your habits, your energy levels, your focus, and even your identity. Walk into a cluttered room, and your mind mirrors that chaos. Try to create meaningful work in a space filled with noise and disorder, and you'll find your thoughts scattered before you've even begun. Your environment is always speaking to your subconscious, telling you what kind of behavior is normal here. If your workspace says urgency and distraction, then that's what you'll experience. If your home communicates rest and clarity, then that becomes your default energy. Designing a supportive environment doesn't require money, it requires attention. It requires asking, what is this space helping me become? Is it designed for who I've been or who I'm becoming? Is it pulling me into my higher self or keeping me anchored to old patterns? You can change your environment by shifting small details. Remove the friction that keeps you from starting important tasks. Make your tools visible and your distractions invisible. Clean the clutter that's adding mental load you don't even notice. Turn your environment into an ally, not an obstacle. The principle of environment applies equally to digital space. The devices you use daily have the power to amplify your focus or destroy it. Your phone, your laptop, your notifications, your browser tabs, they form a kind of digital atmosphere that follows you wherever you go. If your screen is filled with alerts, badges, and open loops, your nervous system is in a constant state of microstress. You may not notice it consciously, but it fragments your thinking, reduces your patience, and trains your brain to expect interruption. To build systems that produce consistent output, you must treat your digital space with the same intentionality as your physical one. Start by decluttering your digital life. Unsubscribe from emails that add no value. Turn off non-essential notifications. Organize your files so you can find what you need without friction. Limit the number of tools you use, and get better at using fewer ones more deeply. Close browser tabs. Use focus modes. Set rules around how and when you engage with digital content. Your devices should serve your goals, not dictate your attention. Your attention is the most precious resource you have, and the environment, both physical and digital, decides how much of it you can protect. Relationships are also part of your environment. Who you spend time with affects your standards, your energy, and your sense of possibility. If you surround yourself with people who are reactive, negative, or stuck in patterns of scarcity, you'll find yourself adapting to their rhythm, not because you want to, but because that's what environments do. They shape behavior. On the other hand, proximity to people who are intentional, visionary, and grounded in action will elevate your thinking. Their systems will influence yours. Their energy will nudge you toward better decisions. This doesn't mean cutting everyone out of your life, it means becoming selective. It means protecting your system from the energy of those who aren't building anything of their own. Environmental design is not about control, it's about support. It's about removing unnecessary resistance and replacing it with subtle encouragement. A book placed where you see it daily is more likely to be read. A journal on your nightstand invites reflection. A well-lit, quiet space makes it easier to create. Each of these is a signal, a cue, a system component. You're not trying to force discipline, you're removing the need for it. You're shaping an ecosystem that makes the desired behavior the natural behavior. The deeper truth is that environment is not just about where you are, it's about what you tolerate. The mess you ignore. The distractions you let in. The boundaries you fail to set. These all become parts of your system. Left unchecked, they become the reasons your goals stall. But when you take responsibility for your environment, you reclaim a level of control that most people give away. You're no longer a victim of your surroundings, you become the architect. This shift also empowers your identity. When your environment reflects your values, it reinforces the story you are telling yourself about who you are becoming. A workspace that is clean, organized, and built for deep work doesn't just make you more productive, it makes you feel like someone who does meaningful work. A home that supports peace and creativity doesn't just make you calmer, it makes you feel like someone who lives with clarity and intent. Environment and identity are linked in a loop. Change one, and the other evolves with it. Of course, not every aspect of your environment can be controlled. Life is messy. Families are loud. Circumstances shift. But you don't need a perfect environment, you need one that's been optimized wherever possible. Even small changes, one drawer organized, one wall cleared, one digital folder restructured, can create ripples in your system. It's not about overhaul, it's about momentum. And the more you build an environment that supports your best work and best self, the more naturally you'll find yourself stepping into that version of you. This is why some of the world's highest performers have the simplest setups. It's not about aesthetic, it's about function. It's about knowing what triggers flow and what interrupts it. It's about understanding that every decision, from what's on your desk to who you eat lunch with, is either strengthening your system or slowing it down. You don't have to control everything, but you must curate intentionally. Your future is too important to leave it in the hands of a chaotic environment.